everybody. Welcome to Bullpen Sessions. Today, I am talking with a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, and former basketball player, Glen Owen. Glen, thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Glen and I go back way back. We met back in Atlanta back in the '90s, and at the time, I was working as a casting director, session runner, and Glen is a writer and director here in town. And I wanted to get his point of view and kind of his journey through life so far, and hopefully you guys pick up on some of the trials and tribulations he's gone through, maybe some of the sports lessons he's kind of maybe taken over into the real world as well. And so yeah, we met about 30 years ago. We actually worked together a little bit. We've written a couple of scripts together, and I think that the sports world kind of translates over into the world that we're in as well, in the creative world. Glenn, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's a big part of what drew me into directing is just because a film shoot is kind of like a sports team in a way. You know, you got a lot of people that are doing their individual things, but it's for a collective good. And I think I really was drawn to the teamwork aspect of shoots. You know, being on set and doing a production. I just loved all the camaraderie and again the teamwork that goes into making it happen. So I felt very comfortable with that as I transitioned from sports to a professional career.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I mean, it's like, there's kind of an intense period when you first start, because you've got, you're a little bit under the gun. There's
Yeah,
kind of a time factor going on, because each minute you're there, you're burning
yeah,
X amount of dollars, and so everybody has their role. You rely on everybody. Each person
yeah,
there has a certain job, and it's intense. And then there's a big sigh of relief once you get
yeah,
finished, at
yeah,
least on set. Now I know you got to take it a step further, and then you got to go to the edit room, and then you're dealing with clients, and you're dealing with a bunch of different voices talking to you, kind of like coaches, right?
yeah. It's very very true. And no, you're right. I mean, like the preparation for a shoot is like practice. You know, the harder you prepare, the better the result typically. If you half-ass it during prep, you're going to struggle on the shoot, just like in a game. If you don't put the work in, you're gonna get beaten in the game. And yeah, there's a clock ticking. You know, you got a finite amount of time to get it done in. Yeah, and you got your clients who want things, and they're hiring you, so you got to listen to them and be respectful. So yeah, you're totally right. There's a ton of parallels between those two worlds.
Yeah. So let's dial it back a little bit, and like what was little Glenn doing when growing up, like when it comes to sports?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I grew up loving sports and really credit athletics with keeping me focused and on track all through high school. I mean, I grew up playing, if it was spring, we're playing baseball, winter, we're playing basketball, fall, we're playing football, and then we'd sprinkle in whatever else, and with just a little bit of golf here or there, some tennis. We played everything growing up, kind of year round. So that was awesome. It was right before there was a lot of specialization and travel teams and stuff, which I'm really thankful for, because I was able to experience a lot of different sports. And then I guess my sophomore year in high school, I stopped playing baseball, stopped playing basketball. I mean, football, and focused on basketball, and then played basketball the rest of my high school career, and worked really hard and wanted desperately to play Division 1. That didn't work out. So I ended up playing a year at a Division 2 school, and then left there and walked on at the University of Georgia, where I didn't get to play a lot. And frankly, that was probably a level above my ability. But I had a blast. We had a really good team, and definitely learned a lot, and learned a lot through sports. Man, just all the moments of failure where you got to get up and try again, and definitely had my share of those. And just also learned about perseverance and work, and just preparation. You know, all the effort that you have to put into it has been valuable in my professional career, and also just the toughness I think that you get from it too. You're gonna find yourself in tough situations when you're in your working life, in your professional life, and there have been times where I've been in a really rough time, and I've just thought back, like, okay, well, I was in some really rough times in sports and practices and things when I wanted to quit, and I had that foundation. I knew I could push through any hard work situation. So I think that's invaluable as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's weird how it's almost masochist to a degree, right? I mean, you
Mhm.
put yourself through that pain in order to get to that next step or that next level, and a lot of times it is where you're at the very end. You're like, okay, how can I take this one more day? And then you do, and then something good happens, and the next thing you know, that springboards you into, who knows, like the next
Yeah,
month, next 6 months, next year.
yeah,
Uh, you know, I I I kind of find that weird today to see people specialize so much, right? I mean, growing up, man, I was like you, right? We played basketball, football, baseball, and then you just kept moving from sport to sport.
yeah,
And to me, I almost think you need to do that because it helps balance out different muscle groups.
yeah,
You're using different parts of your brain.
yeah.
And I see kids today. They're starting out at 7 years old and they're
Oh,
playing travel ball and they're doing that. And maybe I don't have any, not disparaging all that. Whatever works for you, but I definitely suggest. It seemed like
yes,
it would be a good idea to let go of whatever sport it is, whether it's basketball, baseball, or football, and go out and try a little something. Even if it's not sports, go join,
whatever. Yeah,
yeah, Boy Scouts, or go drawing, or play an instrument or something. Something
yes,
kind of well rounds your personality and your identity. But
yeah. Agreed, agreed. No, that's a great point, and a great 7-year-old baseball player may not be a great 12-year-old or 15-year-old baseball player. That kid might have been
absolutely,
better off playing basketball. There have always been phenoms. I look back in my childhood, they were phenoms at the age of 10, but then they kind of, peak out there,
yeah,
and if you got all your eggs in one basket, it's just I agree with you. I think it's healthier physically, mentally, everything, just to play it all, or do whatever you're passionate about until you're a little older, 14, 15, 16, and then if you want to focus, then that's your choice.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I did the same thing, and then I think it was my junior year in high school is when I finally dropped basketball. I mean, I still played football, but there's not. I think people panic,
Yeah,
to a degree, and,
agreed.
and there's really not a need, man. I mean, I was a very average baseball player even up until I was 14 years old. I mean,
Yeah,
I didn't make an all-star team. I made one alternate all-star team
yeah,
when I was in little league, and so I think there's two factors at play. There's the stud that was 8 years old who like you said they kind of ceiling out at about 12 years old when they have to
yeah,
back up to the pony league and
yeah,
everything out the 90 feet and 45 feet and all that stuff. So yeah, I find it interesting. I think people sometimes have to keep perspective because all that hard work you put in, and it doesn't have to be all year round. I mean, you could play baseball when it's baseball season for 8 years, and then all of a sudden, boom, you hit the right coach.
yeah,
You go through a growth spurt, and the next thing
absolutely.
you're pretty good. That
Yeah,
kind of thing.
very, very true. Very good advice.
So what like when did you get the urge to get into the creative world or a writer director world?
Yeah, I mean, I always growing up, I always loved. I was the kid that made D's in math, but I'd be in the back of class reading a novel. I'd make
Okay,
A's in English, make D's in math, and not do well in science. So I always loved reading, and even writing. In a little bit in high school, I would do a little bit of like poetry, short stories, and stuff. So I always had that creative gene, I guess. And then in college, I majored in radio, TV, film. I knew I wanted to do something in media, uh, and came out of college and got a job directing and writing cable TV commercials, like low budget, just bad,
right,
bad
right, right.
TV commercials. But it was a great way to learn, and we would shoot 5 of them a week, and it would be for a car dealer and McDonough, and then a jewelry store in Conyers. These little, but I was able to learn, and that was great. And then the more I did it, I started migrating into directing, and I didn't even know I wanted to be a director. I just loved doing shoots. And
Hmm.
again, I think I like the teamwork aspect of it, the creative aspect. I like creating something from nothing and seeing it through from scratch. So that was really a lot of fun for me. And I started working at Turner at TNT as a freelancer doing movie promos, and slowly but surely I was able to talk them into letting me direct some projects, and they let me direct an NBA. First, they let me direct an NFL campaign, then an NBA campaign, and I was able to build a reel from there, and just slowly climb the ladder as a director after that.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point to bring up. That like I don't think a lot of people, there's a glamour to this world, right? The creative world, the writer, director, actor world, and there's no real handbook as to how you go out and do it.
Uh,
Yes, you can go to school and get your degree, and that'll get you a piece of paper and a lot of congratulations. But
yeah,
to try to understand what it takes to go then from, hey, okay, I got my degree, to what am I going to do next? And you do have to have kind of an entrepreneurial
yes,
mindset, right? I mean, because there is nobody there. There's no structure
no,
unless you immediately go into like an advertising agency or a
right,
production company. When you're just trying to find your wings, and like you were talking about, you really have to go out, or at least it sounds like you did the pathway of, hey, let me just go figure it out, and I know I like to do this X or Y, whatever it is. I mean, it doesn't even have to be the creative world, it can be anything. I like
yes,
to do this, so therefore how do I get from this to establishing myself and creating a career out of it, instead of just a odd job thing out of it.
yep,
uh, and so
yep,
you went out and just, you have to start from the bottom, man. There's the top. There's maybe 1% of people who jump in and have some either like connection,
right,
or they have some kind of savant ability, and somebody picks up on that savant ability and then they throw them into that world. But otherwise, you start at the bottom, you figure it out from there. Like you said, you go out. Hey, I want to work on shoots. I go out and shoot 5 different spots for
yeah,
5 different local dealers or 5 different
yeah,
local stores, and then build a reel so that I can then show myself. And then today's world, it's even more available than it used to be, right? I mean, you used to have to shoot some film. If you weren't shooting video, you'd have to go shoot film, spend a lot
yeah,
of money, develop that film, then go into the edit bay.
yeah,
Today you can take your iPhone and shoot a pretty good spot, and then
pretty,
put
yep.
that up on social media, and then social media gets you into door X or Y.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think in one hand it's easier, but in the other hand it's maybe harder because more people are able to do it. So I think that evens it out. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I like to joke that I started in the mailroom of production basically, and just and made mistakes and worked my way up, and just I would just shoot anything I could. If I was hired to write a spot, I was going to write something that I had to go shoot. Just because I was addicted to that, and knew the more I did it, the better I would get at it. But yeah, you're right, and I'm thankful for the fundamentals I was forced to pick up, and it took a while. It was a process, and I had to kind of claw and fight and just slowly climb my way up. And I'm still trying, even now. I'm trying to climb that next rung on the ladder, because I think that helps you develop a strong foundation and hopefully some humility and appreciation for what you're able to get to do. So I'm thankful that it didn't like happen overnight. I think there's a lot of good that can come from the process of slowly climbing your way and working your way up.
Yeah, and you bring up another good point. I mean, it's never, in terms of work ethic, you just can't stop once you think you've made it. Like,
No,
oh, I made this. I got to work on a Paramount film.
yeah,
Oh, I did it. That's it. Now everything's gonna pour in, and I'm just gonna sit
it's
back.
it's
And
like that T-shirt, man. Nobody cares. You know,
that's right. Yeah.
you got a few days of goodwill from that stuff, but then stuff moves fast, and yeah, you're I'm constantly trying to make new contacts and sell, and I've got a good reel with a lot of big brands, and I've done a lot of different types of work, but there's a lot of other people out there that are good too and do really good work, and it's just incredibly competitive, like in sports. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you might be a great pitcher, but there's 1,000 other ones who are out there working hard who are really good too. You may be a great jump shooter, but there's a 200,000 of them out there who are just as good. So you have to constantly, continue to climb and work hard. If you get complacent, then it'll all pass you by.
Yeah, and those are some of the life lessons. I mean, the sports lessons that you got to
Yep.
take into life, and
Yep.
they're cliche, but they're cliche for a reason because that's the way it is, right? I mean,
It is.
there is always, especially in the world, the creative world, there's a small number of people, like, for example, in the Screen Actors Guild,
Yeah.
2% of the people make a living. Okay, so
Wow.
two
Wow.
2%, and you figure
Wow.
at this point there's about there was 160,000. Let's say it's 200,000 people, right? So that's 4,000 people are making a
Wow.
living at it, and in terms of making a living where they're doing it full time. So there's a lot of, you got to stick to itiveness.
Yes.
You've got to be doing that extra push up. You got to be doing that extra scene class.
Yeah.
There's and you got to be doing it all the time, right? There's
All
just
the time, you gotta be committed. It's a numbers game. Yeah, that's a great example. The actors I see that, they'll audition for a role, there'll be 60 people going for a little role on a commercial, and it's competitive, and you gotta stick with it for a long time, to make some headways. That's a really good analogy.
Yeah, and I think the same is in your world too, writers, directors, man. There's so many people who want to do
Yeah,
that. And Glenn's being humble, man. He's been working for a long time doing a lot of big stuff. And still he's having to constantly, fight at the game,
yeah,
try to better his game,
yeah,
and try to keep moving the ball, keep the eye on the prize, the eye on the ball, the whole,
yeah,
all those tropes from sports that really carry over. And I think the reason I talk about that so much is that I alluded to it in the intro of my thing that you know 99.87% of high school athletes and
yeah.
97.5% of college athletes are not going to play pro ball, man. And
No,
so
right.
you're going to have to take you're doing yourself a benefit if you take those things from the world that you're in sports and shift them into the world that you're going to, because eventually whether you come to grips with it in your sophomore year in college, or you come to grips with it a couple years after you finish playing, you finally realize, okay, this is really over now. You've got to kind of keep that same mindset to go from the classroom or the yard or the field or the gym to the corporate world or the
Yeah,
entrepreneurial world or whatever world it is you move into next. You've got to do that, accept it, and move forward. And so, this the sooner you can grip onto that, the better, I think.
great point. And I think you're right. I think it's good to dream big and work hard, and then also have an acceptance of where you land. I mean, I remember I was sending letters to North when I was in high school. I'm sending letters to North Carolina and Duke, and
Yeah,
you I wasn't there. I wasn't going to play there. I wasn't good enough to play there. But I was going to dream big, and then that didn't work out. But I accepted it, went where I went, and then I thought I was done playing basketball, and I was just playing pickup ball with a bunch of players at Georgia. And one of the guys is like, "Man, you should come walk on. We could use you. You're good." And that I was like, "Okay." And then I went and talked to the coaches and walked on, and but I wasn't even really planning on that, and I just think that I also think too, I have a saying: we all end up back at the YMCA at the end of the day, and so I still have a love for basketball. I still play pickup ball even now at my advanced age, and I probably shouldn't be, but you can still keep playing.
yeah,
Even you can. There are obviously adult baseball leagues. There's adult leagues
yeah.
in pretty much everything, and you can still get that fix while you're pursuing your 9 to 5.
Yeah, and that's something to be said too, because even though I'm saying, hey, man, at some point you got to accept it and you got to move on, and you're gonna go do something else than sports.
Yeah.
It's never gonna go away from you. I
No.
mean, I mean, I went through a period where I just hated baseball because, I'd given so much to it, and then it just, it stopped in my world, and I was
Yeah.
really bitter, and I was
Yeah,
really
of course.
sad, and I wouldn't watch baseball games, I didn't care anymore. But it was just me being hurt, it wasn't anything other than that because I still love baseball today. Hell, here I am doing bullpen
Yeah.
sessions,
Yeah, exactly.
trying to pass it on, and so there's an acceptance to it, but there's also an understanding that you started playing this sport because you loved it
Yeah.
internally. I mean, there was some kind
Right.
of there's soulful. It was something that
Yep.
stirred you, and so you can't lose that perspective because that's part of you.
Yep.
But then you also have to realize there's going to be a cap at some point where you may not have to be able to go after your dreams. You're not going to be the LeBron James or the Kuna or the Strider of baseball
Yeah.
anymore, and you just have to kind of figure out where your lane is now.
Yep. Yep. 100%. You're exactly right.
So how I mean I what led you to go play pickup ball at Georgia that ended up getting you through the door? Because a lot of times, I'm talking to people as who are the gatekeepers or where's
Yeah.
those moments in your life where I just took a turn left and all of a sudden I was walking down a different pathway.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It was in the spring, and I was the few of the guys were there playing at the rec center at Georgia, and I guess I had a pretty good game. And the guy named Laterro Green, he ended up playing in the NBA. But
Yeah,
yeah, he was like, "Hey man, you should come out. The walk on we have now isn't very good. You can play. You should come out." And I guess I could have easily ignored that, and
right.
but I'm glad I didn't, and I listened, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. I think the universe or God or whatever puts things in front of you, and you have to listen to that and follow that path, and that's what I did, and I made a lot of great friends. We won the SEC championship, so again, I played in probably 5 games, but I got a ring, and it
Awesome.
was awesome that we beat LSU, and they had Shaq, and everybody stormed the court, and
Right.
it was madness. So, and I've got a lot of good friends from that team, and I'm really glad that I stuck with it and didn't totally turn my back on the game. And I think I was probably a little bit like you, a little disillusioned, and
Yeah.
screw it, I'm done. And that's just, you're right. A lot of times that's just, we're feeling sorry for ourselves,
Yeah.
and not honoring our love, the core of our love for the sport. And so I was just lucky. It was one of those little moments, right place, right time, and then again, you have to listen to those moments and follow them.
Yeah. Who was on that team?
Uh, Latrell Green, Alec Kessler, who was an NBA first round
Kessler.
pick.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
remember
and
I used to hate him. I mean,
uh,
I went to Tennessee, so
Tennessee. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
they had good teams too. He
Yeah.
was good. Rod Cole was a friend of mine, really good player, played in Europe. A few other guys that played in Europe, but we had a really good team.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Wow. Well, I mean, I think we hit everything that we really wanted to talk about. I'm trying to think of anything else that that really summation of just you know like you said, you finished at Division 2. You said I'm done with this. I went to Georgia. I went to play rec ball one day, and all of a sudden, boom,
Yeah,
I'm walking on at Georgia. I was talking to my buddy Mike DeFelice. He was a 13-year big league catcher, but he was a teammate of mine at Tennessee, and but he wasn't a catcher until his senior year in
wow.
college. I mean,
Wow.
and he just said, "Coach, the current catcher's coach at the time, he said, 'Hey man, just show me how to do it.'" And they just worked really hard, all season long. And the next thing you know, he gets drafted in the 11th round and he plays 13 years
That's crazy.
catcher. So you never know, right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's those little turns, and I mean,
yeah,
going to play Division 1, any kind of ball is awesome, right? I
yeah.
mean, we get to go to different cities and different places, and we're at
Amazing.
packed stadiums and that kind of thing. So um, that's really cool, man. I didn't know the whole background. I mean, as long
Oh
as
yeah, man.
I didn't
Yeah,
know.
and I bounced around to a couple of small schools before then too, just trying to play, and it just wasn't. They just weren't good fits. And I got to Georgia, I was like, okay, I feel at home here, and I made it more about just where I felt comfortable in the school, and then the basketball piece kind of fell into place.
Right.
So I think that's part of it too. And one other just word of advice that I would have for kids: they're coming out of high school, going to college, and you need to be mentally strong for that transition, because high school was amazing. I mean, I have just amazing memories of playing high school ball. It was so much fun, and but then you get to college, and it's a little bit of a different beast. I mean, it's a little more of a, I won't say a job, but
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's more business like.
yeah,
Those
yeah,
coaches' jobs are on the line, and players are trying to play professionally, and it's a little more cutthroat, and it's harder, and there's nobody that's going to be cuddling you, and it's just a different. It's a pretty big transition, and so I think you just have to be really smart about your college choice and what level you're going into, and just be very very clear eyed about that transition, because I think a lot of kids get kind of blown away by the just how hard it is making that transition from high school to college athletics.
that's a great point, man. I mean, if when you think about it, really only like 6 or 7% of the high school kids go to college, period.
Right.
And then that's Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, NAIA. And so you're talking about the top, 1-2% of
Yeah.
everybody around the whole United States going to college to play a sport. And so you're playing with all the best players around that
Yes.
area or even in the country.
Country, the shit, the world.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
you look at
Yeah,
basketball, soccer, even baseball. People coming from all over. And
yeah,
one thing I would love to close on, and I went through this with my son, who ended up playing. He played back. He was he followed in my footsteps. He was a preferred walk on at Rice in basketball, but had a ton of offers from high Division 3 level schools. And he didn't really look at it. He was high academic. He didn't look at a bunch of D2s, but he even had some interest for some good D2s. But kids just get so obsessed with, I got to go Division 1. I got to go Division 1. And my advice is just go where they want you and go where you can play. And
yeah,
there are kids that come out of D3 and do play professionally. There are kids that come out of D2 and play professionally in all different sports. And there are tons that don't, but have great experiences and get to play. And it doesn't, the Division 3 model, you're not practicing 30 hours a week year round. You've got more time, and it's still super competitive, and those guys are good. There's not just a ton of separation. They're really good players at
yeah.
the high Division 3 level in all sports. And those kids work hard and they're into it. So I tried to tell my kid, he didn't listen, and now he looks back, he's like, I should listen.
Yeah, yeah.
I should have gone where I could play. And I just think kids just need to keep an open mind and not get hung up on, if it's D1, I'm a failure, because you're not.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point because, you know, if you're talented and you have a work ethic, it won't matter, right? I mean,
No,
especially these days and age, man. Back in the day, there was no publications. There weren't,
right.
there was no internet, there was no publications. So, guys made it because they were playing and they got on TV when they played in a
Yeah,
certain level. And then they had tryout camps after that. But today's world, you can go to all those divisions and get the recognition or the accessibility to people who
yeah,
need to see you, right? I mean,
right.
I did the same thing. I wrote to all these Division 1 schools
Yeah,
and coming out of high school and decided to go to junior college because I wanted to kind of maybe up my game a little bit, and it just happened to be up my game in terms of being able to get better accessibility to other schools
yeah,
or get drafted.
yeah,
And baseball is a little unique where you can get drafted after your freshman year if you go to junior college, or after your sophomore year when you go to junior college.
yeah,
Whereas you go to Division 1 or Division 2 or Division 3, you have to wait till after your junior year,
right.
right? And so there just happened to be a great junior college program 45 minutes from where I grew up, and so Spartanburg Methodist. I'm going to plug that
Yeah,
real.
yeah, yeah,
Reggie Sanders was on my team. I mean, there's a great example of a guy who you know didn't probably even get noticed by Division 1 because he was playing first base in only 1 year of high school, and so he got on our team, got drafted in the fourth round, and next thing you know, he's the 13-year big league guy. So
look at
you're
the
right.
guys on the Miami Heat. Max Strus
Yeah,
played Division 2 ball. I mean, and again, if he had stayed at that D2 school and was selling insurance right now in Illinois, he would still be a success. So it's not just because he ended up in the NBA, but you're
yeah,
right that there's a lot of possibilities at all levels, and just make it your journey. And if you land at a smaller school, maybe that's where you belong, and maybe that's where you're going to thrive and be all conference and have great memories, as opposed to riding the bench at Tennessee or at Georgia
Yeah.
or somewhere.
Yeah.
Go where you can play, and again, that's why you're there. You want to play.
Yeah. I agree. Agree. And quite frankly, people who are recruiting in the corporate world or in the business world or in
Yeah.
the job world, they love to see athletes because they know
Yes.
they've got the built-in work ethic. They know they've been
True.
through trials and tribulations. You know that
True.
they usually have their heads on straight,
Yep.
and they make good employees. So
Very
lots of
true.
benefits no matter where you play, whatever division it is.
Yep.
Yeah,
Nobody cares. We all
awesome.
end up at the Y.
That's right, man. That's
It's
right.
all good.
Well, cool, man. Glenn, thanks for joining us, man, and talking to me and some good stuff there.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, my pleasure. Good luck with bullpen sessions, and good luck to all the kids out there watching. It's good stuff.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, man.
All right, adios, man. Talk soon.
Yep.
Bye.